Namaste and welcome to everyone. We are here with another insightful episode of Global Focus, where we analyze the most pressing international developments shaping India's future. I am your host here, Hari Prakash Sinha, and today we will dive deep into the significance of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's high-stake visit to the United States in 2025. To decode the key takeaways from this landmark visit, we are honored to have with us Dr. Adityanjee, President of the Council for Strategic Affairs. He is a distinguished expert on geopolitics and international affairs. Dr. Adityanjee brings unparalleled insight into India's strategic positioning and the evolving power dynamics between New Delhi and Washington. His expertise will help us understand the implication of this visit on trade, defense, energy security, and India's long-term diplomatic goals. So welcome, Dr. Adityanjee. Welcome to Global Focus once again.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Sinha, for inviting me to Global Focus and to discuss Prime Minister Modi's visit to Washington, D.C. I'm very pleased indeed to be here.
Yes, sir. So this visit was very talked about actually, and we were expecting what comes out. So what's your take on this, the PM Modi visit to the US, recent visit?
Well, it was an important visit. As everyone knows, new administration has taken over. There's change of administration from Democrat to Republican.
Yeah,
As usual, in the last 2 years of last administration, India-US relationship is not good.
yeah.
And we have seen this pattern over last 25, 30 years that
Mhm.
although the broad rubric of bilateral relationship is improving every year, there are irritants, and most of these irritants are during Democrat-led administrations.
I see.
And so in last 2 years of Biden administration, there was more focus on human rights, religious freedom issues. There were attempts to score brownie points against India. Deep state
Correct.
agencies instruments were used, whether it was Hindenburg report or Pannu, who was a CIA asset, similar things. And that had actually created a rancor in the environment. And I'm very glad that that rancor has gone away. The other things were in the last administration, there was a deliberate delay to supply the GE 404 engines and GE 414 engines, despite having commitment to do so.
Yes, sir.
So there was also at one point in time delay in processing visas of Indian tourists, and they were given like 2 years delay kind of thing.
Yeah,
So some of those things have been sorted out. It is also apparent now that the grandstanding by people like Trudeau with
yeah,
the backing of United States
yeah, yeah,
uh, on similar issues has already stopped. So you are seeing some concrete changes in the optics in the bilateral relationships. And as you know that Trump 1.0 and Modi 1.0 and 2.0, there were good chemistries. And so now we have Trump 2.0 meeting Modi 3.0. And one of the things that was very, very obvious that Trump, while hugging Modi, said, "We missed you." Uh, in other words, that we are going to carry over
yeah,
our friendship, our bilateral relationship. And in 2 days of Modi's visit, a lot was achieved. Mind you, this administration had been in sort of, office for
mhm.
almost 3 weeks only,
Yeah,
and cabinet appointees are still being sworn in and appointed by their due process.
yeah,
But if you look at the totality of the situation, Foreign Minister Jaishankar was present for more than a week in Washington, D.C. prior to this meeting, arranging the, bilateral visit. And in that process, he met with Marco Rubio, he met with other Department officials, etc., etc. So a lot of groundwork was laid. Those people in India who were kind of, you know, taking an uncharitable view that he was sitting there trying to get a sort of, invitation for Modi's visit for swearing in ceremony are sadly mistaken. The time was used, you know, to put the bilateral relationship on a firmer footing compared to the Biden administration.
yeah,
And you see that in short period of time, Modi was the fourth world leader to be invited by Trump. And if you see the other countries, Jordan does not count for a country. There's a reason why Jordan's king was there.
uh,
Israel, one can understand,
yeah,
and Japan is their economic and strategic partner. So out of that, Modi was the first major leader to be invited. And in this short period of time, Modi met with J.D. Vance and his family,
yeah,
whether in Washington, D.C. or elsewhere. That's a different issue. Modi was able to meet with Marco Rubio. Modi was able to meet with Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor of United States, met with newly appointed Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, which is again very significant because of the deep state agencies' hostility towards India and trying to implicate some Indian government officials in certain legal cases. So all of this was very, very important in a short period of time. And of course, you had a bilateral meeting. Just want to clarify, it was not a summit meeting. It was a working visit. By diplomatic protocol, it would not qualify for a summit meeting, but still a lot was achieved. If you see at the end of the meeting, there was a joint communique, which was 6 pages long, 36 points, and there's a major focus on, I would say, three or four different areas. First is on a military defense partnership.
yeah,
I mean, that comes out very strongly that there's a 10-year plan. The so-called DTTI has been replaced by a new acronym, and that acronym is COMPACT. COMPACT stands for Catalyzing Opportunities for Military Partnership, Accelerated Commerce and Technology for 21st Century. But under the rubrics of COMPACT, India would get actually American manufactured
mm,
defense equipment that India has wanted. And that includes C-130J Super Hercules aircrafts, C-17 Globemasters, which are for carrying over troops,
mm,
P-81 Poseidon aircraft, these are for maritime surveillance, Chinook helicopters, Seahawk helicopters, and Apache helicopters, Harpoon anti-ship missiles, howitzers, MQ-9B drones, etc., etc. So there's a whole laundry list in United States that a government-to-government sales is willing to part with high-end, high technology defense equipment to India, although India is not a NATO member. And it is the result of signing the basic agreements, the BECA, the LAMOA, the COMCASA, all those kind of foundational agreements, 4 or 5 agreements that have been signed in the past 2 decades. So we are reaping the benefits of that. There will also be joint production of Javelin anti-tank guided missiles and Stryker infantry combat vehicles in India. So again, with those things, there will be local manufacture and possibly some percolation or transfer of technology. Uh, it's very, very important that it's not just about India procuring defense equipment from US. It's a bilateral procurement process is called RDP, reciprocal defense procurement. In other words, India will have chance to sell some of the Indian made munitions and things like that to United States. There is also some agreement on, again, it's a new acronym called Asia. It is Autonomous Systems Industry Alliance,
Yeah.
and it's basically on robotic warfare, AI-driven platforms, AI-driven, and China is going very heavily into that direction.
Yeah.
And US is also researching AI-driven platform and weapon systems, including fighter aircraft. So some collaboration and some percolation or trickle-down effect on technology transfer would be important from India's sort of perspective. And the memorandum talks about not just, Air Force or Army or Navy, but all the five branches, including cyber security and space technologies. So it's a very, very wide 10 years program. And then there's an issue about trade and investment. There is this Mission 500, which aims to, and it's a very realistic aim, aims to boost bilateral trade to $500 billion in next 5 years by 2030. It's doable because right now, if we see both trade and services, the bilateral trade and services that comes to around $190 billion, and it is around $50 billion in India's favor. Of course, United States wants quote unquote fair and balanced trade, which means they don't get the trade deficit. It's possible if we are able to enlarge and deepen our trade relationship, and there's talk about a bilateral free trade area by the fall of 2025. Now, viewers probably may not realize that in the first term of Trump, there were negotiations for a bilateral free trade area in 2019 and 2020 before he lost the elections and new administration came. But Donald Trump has some kind of antipathy towards free trade agreements unless it is in US favor. So
Yeah.
he was not willing to sign at that time, but now he's willing to sign so that the adverse trade actually goes away. He
Mm.
has said that India is a tariff king. The average tariffs are around 15%, but in things like, Harley Davidson motorcycles, it was 50%. Government has agreed to reduce it to 40%. There will be possibly easy access to American whiskey or bourbon or
Mm.
American agricultural products, duck meat, alfalfa, hay, etc., etc. So if we have a bilateral free trade area,
Yeah.
the trade imbalance will disappear and the quantum of bilateral trade would be in India's favor because we will not be doing so much of trade than with China. We will have opportunity to export without tariffs, without non-tariff barriers, India's handicrafts, India's mangoes and other fruits and things like that, pharmaceuticals. There is talk about bilateral investments. Most of the people think about investment from US to India. They don't realize that India is also investing in US.
Yeah.
Almost $8 billion Indian investment in US, and it's in multiple areas, including battery making and uh, making pharmaceutical appliances like injections and things like that. So these investments, $8 billion by India and US, that creates jobs, 3,000 jobs in US. So it's getting to be a more equitable relationship. The other thing that was mentioned in the joint communique was the role of Indian students. There are 300,000 Indian students. When they come to US, they pay fees.
Yeah.
That brings dollars into US economy. So when you talk about trade investment, in terms of fees alone, they pay around $8 billion. And for living expenses, their families send them money and all that sort of thing. So total contribution by Indian students to US economy, and mind you, they are students. They are not immigrants. They are not H-1B visa workers. They are students. So there's net flow of Indian capital into United States economy to the tune of $30 billion. That happens. The next major area of agreement is in energy security. And in energy security, US was upset earlier that India was buying gas and petroleum from Russia. India used to buy some gas and hydrocarbons from US, but it dwindled down. The issue is the negotiation. The cost of shipping has to be included. Uh, with US emphasis on drilling more and fracking, uh, there will be more oil in the international market that will drive the prices of oil lower, and that would be in India's interest. So it doesn't matter whether you buy from Venezuela or Guyana or from US, the shipping costs are the same. But
Yes.
if you have an equitable formula of, involving shipping costs into the total cost,
Yes.
why India should just buy from, let's say, Russia or Iraq or Iran or Saudi Arabia, because of our growing need and lack of domestic oil production, India is purchasing 80 to 85% of its energy needs from abroad. So diversification of sources is important. And in that process, if there is some trade imbalance that is in India's favor, gets equalized, so be it. It will keep United States happy. But yeah, there will be a long-term focus on that. There is again some talk on civil nuclear energy, US supplying nuclear power reactors, large nuclear power reactors. I just want to caution about that. There is some talk about, modifying and, amending India's Civil Liability for Nuclear Damages Act, CLNDA, to allow American companies to be able to participate in India's civil energy market. So, it will require amendment of a parliamentary law of Indian Parliament that was, I think, passed around 2010. So it will be a major issue. The qualifications I have is that United States has not built very many nuclear reactors recently. There are only two large nuclear reactors in the state of Georgia. One came in 2023, one in 2024. The environment in US is against having large nuclear reactor because there have been delays, cost escalation. Each reactor costed around $30 billion. So importing nuclear reactors from US is not cost effective. That is number one. B, they don't have any recent expertise, and most of the US nuclear power reactors are 30, 40, 50 years old. They are crumbling. They require, maintenance frequently and all that sort of thing, leakage of radioactive gases or fuels. So it may not be in India's interest to purchase large nuclear reactors from United States. India should continue to focus on small and modular reactors that it is working on, and continue to work on the Russian reactors and the French reactors that India is trying to get in Jaitapur in Maharashtra from France. Uh, this is not going to happen tomorrow. There is some talk about throwing, on the table F-35s. There's a lot of, hue and cry in India, in the media. It's just an offer, you know. Just because Donald Trump wants to equalize the trade imbalance does not mean India is going to buy immediately. In my mind, F-35 would be white elephants. The platform itself costs $80 million per piece, and then avionics and software and armament. So each single unit of this fifth generation aircraft may cost 130 to 140 million dollars. And then maintenance is expensive. Yes, India needs a fifth generation aircraft. India does not have its own. The competitor is Su-57, which is, the platform costs around $50 million, $30 million cheaper. Furthermore, India has more, Russian origin aircrafts. So it's a complex question. Just because it's on the offer doesn't mean that Indian government is immediately take it.
Yes.
You have other platforms, you have French platforms, Rafales, you
Hmm.
have the focus should be on transferring the GE 404 and GE 414 jet engines sooner rather than later so that Tejas Mk1A variant and Tejas Mk2 variants could be manufactured domestically. But the lot of noise and brouhaha that is being done in Indian media, I don't think there is a signed contract. It's not how you acquire
Yeah.
fighter aircrafts. The sad thing is that India is lagging behind. The Kaveri engine we talked about from 1980s is still not functional or operational. Now Kaveri engine is jointly being produced with Safran of France. And finally, the estimate is that it will be 2032 when it will be available. So you cannot keep on sustaining your armed forces and air force by importing foreign equipment. Let's be very frank about it.
Yes. Yes.
Rather than, and even if you see Rafale, initially the talk was around 2004, 2005. When did we start acquiring? It was around 2019, basically, that we actually had the first Rafale delivered. So these are very slow processes. From US perspective, yes, India will be one country that can purchase and their trade imbalance will go away. But then separate questions have to be asked. Request for proposals has to be put forth by the ministry and the Air Force. Technical assessments have to be made whether it is okay for Indian situation or not.
Yeah.
uh, Price has to be negotiated, technology transfer has to be negotiated. So I personally don't think that we will see a day that F-35 will come to India. I think it's just more of a talk. A lot of time agreements are signed, but nothing is done. Memorandum of understandings are signed. I think it's just to keep the optics good, keep the chemistries good. Who knows after 4 years who would be the president of United States?
Yes.
And you are not going to see any F-35s in next 4 years. That we can be very assured.
Yeah.
There is also emphasis on transfer of technology, on critical technologies. I think in certain respects, previous programs have been renamed, like DTTI has become compact. Similarly, ISAT has become trust. So new alphabet soup is being thrown, but some talk about transfer of technology to India and focus on rare earths and minerals. So there are two programs. One is MSP, Mineral Security Program, and second is sort of recycling minerals. It's called SMRI, Strategic Mineral Recovery Initiative, by which you can remove rare earths from other heavy industry, the waste products from those for recycling. So those are the main things. And then there is some usual talk about counter-terrorism and stopping all that kind of thing. The name of Tahavur Rana does not come in the joint communique, but there is some understanding that he will be extradited to India. There is total silence about extraditing David Healy, or Daud Gilani, aka Gilani or Gilani, whatever his Muslim name was. There is no talk about extraditing him. So these are certain things which have been achieved during this bilateral visit. I would say overall, this was a good visit. It was a solid visit because Trump is going to be there for next 4 years. He is coming in a very aggressive manner. He is doing a domestic restructuring of the country's economy. And he means business this time because he has been more experienced now into the statecraft from his first experience and then losing the office, losing the election. So he's a man in hurry and he's trying to do a lot of things at a very short notice domestically. And you might have seen that, with Elon Musk and Donald Trump, both of them basically decried United States AID program. And Donald Trump openly said that the money that was sent was to destabilize countries like India and Bangladesh, which is true. So
Correct.
now there is an admission from the highest office in United States that United States deep state agencies were interfering in Indian elections and India's internal affairs by sending money through front organizations. And that is what people in India have said all along, that we don't need any meddling by you. So if the highest public official in United States admits that, what more do you want?
Looking at the media briefings, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump were there. Uh,
Hmm.
Two comments. One
Yeah.
comment, President Trump commented, or PM Modi, he is a better negotiator than me.
Hmm.
What do you make out of him? His comment just he said something, or this is something serious?
Look, when there is meeting between heads of states and head of governments, there's a lot of graciousness, a
Yeah.
lot of grace, a lot of poise. You want to treat your guest with respect because your guest is also head of a government. So I think that you saw whatever is there in display, and in response, Modi said that, the word deal, only one person in the entire world has copyright, and that is Trump. So they were just, being complimentary to each other.
Yeah.
You know, people are really silly. They don't realize that it's not that Modi and Trump sit together and hash out a deal here.
Yeah.
They negotiate a deal. It does not happen this way.
Yeah.
Your bureaucracy, they are the ones who, write the proposals and discuss the proposals and exchange notes and exchange non-papers and come to all these agreements. And when the head of governments meet, they it's yes, they sign.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was Trump complimenting Modi because both of them have had friendly relationships and both of them know how to work with each other. So he was just being gracious, but in reality, what he's trying to say that India as a nation is a tough negotiator. And it should be. It should be like that. India should negotiate any business deal with any other country or any international agreement. And Indian bureaucrats are known to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes they are resented for putting very hard bargaining positions. It
Mhm.
is good for the country because you are working for the country.
Yeah.
Head of the state or head of the government eventually just sign whatever deals are negotiated. So Trump was just being gracious. It's not that, both of them sat together for 1.5 hour and all, negotiated these deals from
Yeah.
scratch. It was the bureaucrats who worked on this.
Yeah, so another comment when some press guy asked the question about the Bangladesh, then
Yeah.
Mr. President Trump said, I am leaving Bangladesh to PM Modi. So can you infer something?
Oh, yes, very much. He also said that, US aid was spending money to meddle in the internal affairs of these countries, including India and Bangladesh.
Mm.
And Elon Musk's DOGE said that $21 million was sent to India for quote unquote increasing the voter turnout. I mean, that is direct influence of American money, American deep state money in India's internal affairs, which is conducting the elections. So, what Trump is telling that he will allow India to manage India's backyard, India's near abroad. And unlike the previous Democrat led administration, where they indulge in a coup, a military sponsored Islamist coup in Bangladesh, Trump administration will not do anything like that. It is also putting notice Muhammad Yunus and his interim government that your days are over. You don't expect any money from us, from United States. You don't expect any help from us. And you deal with your relationship with India on your own. And if you mismanage and something happens, then you'll be responsible. So, in other words, it's a carte blanche given to India to manage her backyard.
Right, right.
And there's no reason why India should not do that.
Yes. So, do you see India has a good chance now to do something credible to just send back the illegal refugees from Bangladesh?
I think India should take the lead. Problem with India is our domestic compulsions.
Yeah.
Apolitical. Now they have been set aside by deportation of illegal Indian immigrants from US to back to India.
Mhm.
Uh, but more than that, it is the judiciary which puts roadblocks.
Yeah.
Uh, and Indian government has to find out some ways of taking a stern action now, since you are confident there will not be any international condemnation on human rights and all, specifically United States, because all said and done, it's the leader of the Western world, and they are the ones who weaponize the issue of human rights and all. So it is a good window of opportunity for India to send illegal Rohingyas and other infiltrators that are there in India in millions
Yeah.
at this juncture, because there will not be any pressure from United States government.
Yes.
And Indian government owes to the nation.
Right.
Make it happen. It's not a question of, oh, judiciary will not allow. Situations have to be created by which judiciary is meddling in the process of extraditing and expelling illegal immigrants from Indian territory has to be done on war footing, because it's a national security interest.
Yes.
Judiciary and Supreme Court, they don't defend the borders of the nation. They can pontificate from ivory towers about this or that,
Mhm.
but they don't guard the nation. And it's a national security issue. So the government has to try to separate this issue, insulate it from the usual running of courts. When you are fighting a war, the
Mhm.
Supreme Court does not decide how many battalions or how many corps of soldiers you have to send. So it is a good time, good opportunity for Indian government to take precipitous actions.
Yes. I hope the government takes some action because this is a very pressing subject and this is a big danger for India actually. Because nearly 6 million refugees are there, as I have learned from somewhere. So, coming to my last question, actually, what do you think should be done to increase the momentum of India-US relation?
I think excuse me, we are going in the right direction. And look, it's not a relationship of equals.
Right.
So let's be very frank about it. There will be a lot of give and take, but it's the time to tap the relationship for India's good. Yes, they will be, people are making comments, oh, why Modi is Trump's friend, why he could not say anything about treatment of Indian deportees who
Mhm.
were, handcuffed and shackled in the military plane. I mean, that is their procedure. If you are in an American military plane being deported,
Mhm.
you are under the jurisdiction of United States law. And the fact of the matter is that that same protocol has been operational since 2012, not just for India. It has been happening for other countries also. Once you break the law, you go to that country and enter illegally, you have committed a crime. You have put a stamp of criminal on your forehead.
Yeah, right. Right.
You have no business asking for this or asking for that, asking government of India to intervene. You did not seek permission from government of India when you sold your land or your property and paid 40, 50 lakhs per person to illegal traffickers, human traffickers. And you bloody well knew that this is illegal because this is not the normal way. You did not apply for a visa, you did not go for your interviews, you did not have any educational qualifications. Your sole motive was to have illegal entry into United States. These people are responsible for their plight,
Yes.
and no, in no way the government should actually show leniency. In fact, their passports should be confiscated and they should never be given any passport because they bring shame to India's name.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We have run out of time. So, India and the US are not just partners, they are shaping the future of global geopolitics. As PM Modi's visit paves the way for deeper collaboration in technology, defense, and trade, the world is watching how this strategic alignment unfolds. Thank you, Dr. Adityanjee, for sharing your invaluable perspective with us today. And to our listeners, if you found this discussion insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Global Focus. For more,
Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for inviting me again on your platform. My parting message is that India-US relationship is going to define the 21st century world order, and the changes have started to come.